Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another episode of the Speak the Truth podcast. I'm your host, Matt Tardio, and I'm going to be honest with you. I dug into some stuff, and I am kind of concerned. I'm extremely concerned right now that there is probably money going from the Minnesota taxpayers over to ISIS. That's my major concern with it, and you're going to understand why here as I start to get into this. And it is easily some of the most disturbing and overly obvious crap that I've found. And it makes me wonder if the FBI isn't already on this, if the CIA, anybody else, honestly, isn't already tracking all of this information. And it all started because I ended up watching a video that the White House had released today, believe it or not. And excuse me, not the White House, but Rapid Response 47. They actually ended up putting out this video right here. And no kidding, I kid you not. This is what got me going down this rabbit hole. And no, I'm not Candace Owens. No, I'm not anybody crazy, but you are about to see exactly why. And I'm going to lay it out for you line by line. And when I lay it out for you, you're going to be like, how the hell is this even happening?
Sentencing for 9 Somali American men is set for next week in Minneapolis, but a newly elected official is asking for leniency.
Minnesota Representative-elect Ilhan Omar wrote a letter to the judge asking for compassion instead of decades of prison time.
Sentencing for 9 Somali American men is set for next week in Minneapolis, but a newly elected official is asking for leniency.
Minnesota Representative-elect Ilhan Omar wrote a letter to the judge asking for compassion instead of decades of prison time.
Fox 9's Karen Scullin joins us now with what she had to say to defense attorneys in U.S.
Attorneys are asking for leniency, but so are several others who filed letters to the judge on behalf of the defendants. But U.S. prosecutors responded tonight with strong arguments why all of them should, in fact, receive the recommended sentence.
Election night was just 2 days ago, but it seems Minnesota Representative-elect Ilhan Omar may have already made her first move as an elected official. In a letter signed November 8th, Omar asks a U.S. district judge for compassion when sentencing 9 Minnesota Somali American men convicted of trying to join the terrorist group ISIS. She says the best deterrent to fanaticism is a system of compassion. We must alter our attitude and approach if we truly want to affect change. We should refocus our efforts on inclusion and rehabilitation. But she's not the only one. 13 letters, including one from the Dean of Students at Minneapolis Public Schools, were also sent to the judge asking for leniency.
And this, ladies and gentlemen, is where the rabbit hole started. Now, this was a long time ago. You're looking at almost a decade ago, and you have all of these 13 people that were listed on here. And I started doing background checks, because, yeah, great. Ilhan Omar, got it. She's going to be into that stuff. And I started working my way down. Mahmoud Noor, Abdi Warsam, Gene Emmons, Carol Olson. And then I got to line number 6, Osman Sheikh Yusuf. And simply by searching Osman Sheikh Yusuf, the amount of crap that I found that went into fraud is absolutely unbelievable. And it has ties to nonprofit organizations, government grants, sitting legislators over inside Minnesota and everything else. And the worst part about this is that they ended up ripping off privileged family or underprivileged families over inside the state of Minnesota, probably committed multiple counts of tax fraud, if we're being perfectly honest. And they've hidden all this crap behind different shell organizations. Now, you guys, I realize, are probably going to get lost if I start going through this stuff without thoroughly explaining it. And I mean thoroughly explaining it. So in order to do that, I had to put together this entire flow chart this morning to bring this up. Now, I know. I'm going to go over this flow chart with you guys because this is literally the flow of money going from 2 nonprofit organizations over to the Minnesota After School Advance, who then charged these 2 companies. And here is where Osman Yusuf ends up coming in right here, who then ended up charging upwards of $4,000 to Minnesota families for literal online school programs that people would use 1 or 2 times because it sucked. And they were, then sending basically the online tutors that we're using were overseas getting paid like $5 an hour or some crap like that. So these dudes were making freaking bank. And a lot of the people ended up getting stuck with it. Now, again, the founder allegedly of Achievers Tutoring, Osman Sheikh Yusuf, is one of the guys that ended up filing the paperwork asking for leniency against the ISIS fighters. And we know, and I'll show you his company and his website and all this other crap, and I'm going to show you the flow of money. But he's clearly got sympathy for ISIS folks, stuff like that, right? Like, no, take it easy on these guys that wanted to join ISIS. Meanwhile, let me set up this fake company in the future here. What I feel like is defrauding taxpayers and defrauding good-hearted families over inside the great state of Minnesota, and using nonprofit organizations who, by the way, you guys, your head is going to spin when you see all of this crap. And so the question is, what the hell are they doing with all this money? Because it's not going into it's not going into the company, and you're going to see why here in a little bit, because they're little shell companies. They've got online presence, they've got website, they've got all this stuff. And like I said, charging upwards of $4,000, right? Upwards of $4,000. So when I did my first search on that name, Mr. Yusuf, or Sheikh Yusuf, excuse me, this is what I ended up finding. It was an article from the Minnesota Reformer, of all things, from December of 2024. So about a year ago. And it goes pretty in depth and pretty in detail to how families over in Minnesota were ripped off. Okay, so to catch you up to par right now, we have Mr. Yusuf, who is the founder of a company that is being alleged to be ripping off low-income mothers and lost tax refunds to tutoring companies using overseas instructors. Again, paying them $5 an hour. This is the guy that wanted the judge to have leniency on 6 people that tried to join ISIS. But it's going to get so much freaking worse. I promise you. Like when I start like, ooh. All right. So the first name that ends up coming up actually is Abdujal. All right. Sheikh Yusuf. Couldn't help but notice he's got the same last name as the other guy. Okay. Abdujal Sheikh Yusuf. And to put you guys back up over on my chart, I'm going to have to go back and forth quite a bit. Abdujal Sheikh Yusuf owns Success Tutoring. Osman, the guy from the letter that was written to the judge, owns Achievers Tutoring. They both allegedly receive money from Minnesota After School Advance. Okay, so this company forwards money to these 2 organizations. So Minnesota After School Advance, which is a program. It's not even a nonprofit. You can't find it on the books in Minnesota anywhere. Nothing like that, which is a whole other freaking pain in the butt. Minnesota After School Advance gives money to Success Tutoring and Achievers Tutoring so that they could use this BS online website in order to get tutoring from overseas instructors in India, to which the companies allegedly pay about $5 an hour. Now, this crap right here within itself is a problem, right? Because you have the program that's not registered anywhere. What it is it's a conglomerate or a partnership between Youth Prize nonprofit and Venn Foundation nonprofit, and I have both their EINs listed here. Youth Prize funnels money into Minnesota After School Advance. So Youth Prize nonprofit sends the money to Minnesota After School Advance, and Venn Foundation actually does all of the lobbying for them. Now, interesting enough, the founder of Minnesota After School Advance happens to be a state rep over in Minnesota by the name of Matt Norse. Matt Norse got elected back in 2023. And one of the very first things that Matt Norse did, all right, after founding the MNASS or MNASA, I don't know, Minnesota After School Advance, the very first legislation that this man ends up pushing is a tax break. So he increased, all right, the earned income that a family can have up to $80,000 in the state of Minnesota to get up to, I think it's $1,500 tax credit to cover education expenses. I hope this is clicking in here. The guy that founded Minnesota After School Advance, who happens to be a state rep in frickin' Minnesota, pushed legislation, all right, his very first year back in 2023, pushed the legislation in order to get it up to $80,000 for earned income for the family. So your family can earn $80,000 of income and still qualify for this credit. All right. And then his organization that he founded prior to going into legislation, again, it's not listed anywhere. It's a program, but allegedly he claims he found it, which is hilarious because when we go over and we look at his own like website from when he was running for office, which is even better, man. Let me find this guy. So yeah, here's his official website. You can look for that crap. But this is his his campaign website. And when you go over to Matt's work, oddly enough, it says archive page not found now. He doesn't like it used to claim it's in the metadata. It used to claim that he founded that place. And now it doesn't. As a matter of fact, it looks like it's been wiped clean. Again, Minnesota legislator. Let's go back. Again, Minnesota legislator pushed it up to $80K, right? Youth Prize sends the money in. Venn Foundation does the lobbying over in the government. And we don't know how much money they've spent on it because of federal law tax code allows them, if it's under 5%, like they list that they're doing lobbying and all that other crap, but they're not going to tell you. Yeah, we could go back to Internet Archive and all that other stuff, but it's just not relevant at this point. It's enough that you just trust me that man claims it. Oh, by the way, it's also documented in multiple media outlets. Just throwing that out there as well. So these people advance money to these companies. Okay, so Youth Enterprise through this advances money to these companies, and they charge up to $4,000 for online tutoring and all that stuff. One of the guys from the company, he's got this. All right, he wrote a letter to the judge asking to take leniency on the frickin' ISIS family. And then, of the 9 guys that wanted to join ISIS that ended up getting tried and convicted guilty inside court, right? So when we start looking through this stuff, and this is where it starts to get really frustrating, it says that those 2 guys that I have up on the chart here, this article, right, that I brought up, these 2 guys, all right, the 2 Yusuf brothers, the 2 guys, Sheikh Yusuf, they asked him whether or not they're related, and they chose not to respond. All right. But this, I believe, is also the one that ends up mentioning that lawmaker that I brought up. Yep, here you go. The bill to increase spending on the tax credit was authorized by Rep. Matt Norris, who prior to his election to the legislature founded Minnesota After School Advance to help more people use the credit. The organization, a collaboration between Venn Foundation and Youth Prize. Again, it's an organization. They claim it as a program. It's not official. You can't find it anywhere. But they do have a website, which we'll go take a look at here in just a minute. Here we go. Gives families 0 interest loans to pay for tutoring, music lessons, driver's ed, and collects the money from their tax refund. Mag F80. Says, best wishes, Matt. God bless you. Thank you very much, Mag. Really do appreciate that. So they do. They collect it from their tax refund. And from what I've been able to read so far, and again, we have to go back over the chart because it's the people here at the end that are paying for all this that end up getting screwed. All right. Is either Minnesota After School Advance gives them the money, so they go directly to them, and then they end up signing contracts, and they give them the money to use at places such as Success Tutoring and Achieves Tutoring, or these companies actually provide the paperwork to them through here, and it's this weird, vicious cycle that keeps going back and forth. And again, one's an ISIS supporter. Now, here's the thing. I also tried to look up both of these companies in the state of Minnesota, Success Tutoring and Achievers Tutoring. I couldn't find a record of them doing business as, or their companies being listed anywhere. But over inside of the article, which I wish it would have told me, it does talk about the companies being registered. But I can't figure out where they're registered, how they're registered, why they're registered. It looks like they're registered through some different office or something else, like doing business as. But it did give an address in one of the articles I was reading that appears to be the same shell address that the Bureau has looked into for a lot of different fraud. All right. And a lot of these different indictments that are taking place, the 78 indictments or whatever it is that ended up coming out. A Dutch's mom says, I wonder if the Minnesota congresswoman was killed because she learned about the fraud. Supposedly, she was changing her vote regarding Medicaid. Yeah, that's what I heard as well. I think this is way, way deeper than people like to admit. Again, they passed it. The organization, a collaboration between Venn and Youth Prize, gives families zero-interest loans to pay for tutoring, music lessons, and driver's ed, and collects the money from their tax refund. Norris helped grow the program to $1.8 million in funding for education programs in 2022, according to his campaign website. Norris had lobbied lawmakers for years to raise the income threshold after being elected in 22. It was one of the first bills he authorized. The bill, HF 915, expanded the tax credit from $1,000 to $1,500. That was the other keynote, by the way, and more than doubled the income threshold to $70,000 with higher earners eligible for a smaller credit. The bill also tied the income threshold to inflation, so it increases every year. Again, what I've read, it sits right around $80,000 now. After the law passed, state spending on the credit more than doubled from $5.3 million to $13.7 million. 5.3 to 13.7 million. Why do you think that is? Because you have a state legislator, Matt Norris, who used to push this company, founded and was lobbying and all of that other crap, pushed it, doubled the income that you could qualify for, and added an extra $500 on top of it. So instead of $1,000, it's $1,500. Instead of $40K, you can now basically make $80K and still qualify for this program. And his organization, through Youth Prize and Venn Foundation, it looks like, ends up funding these two companies, all right, on interest-free loans that then go to these people. Now, again, I found articles, and I've been reading, and we'll show right here in just a minute, that they end up charging overseas companies. They use overseas companies. We'll go to their website and you can look at it. And by the way, it's all in Somali. Like when we go to this website here in a second, you're going to hear him. All he speaks is like Somali. They're just reeling in these different Somali families, right? And they're screwing them over. Lul Muhammad learned about free tutoring for her 4 children at the mosque she attended near Del Farouk in Bloomington one day in the summer of 22. After prayer, 3 men told the congregation that they could get their children back on track after the pandemic caused so many fall behind in reading and math. The tutoring was completely free for low-income parents, she recalled them saying. Muhammad said a mosque leader who previously ran the youth program encouraged families to sign up. You hear that? So now we have a mosque that is involved. A mosque leader is encouraging the families to sign up. They were introduced at the mosque as good people, so I trusted them, she said in an interview with Somali through an interpreter. They said, if you don't help your kids will fall behind. As she was leaving the mosque, the men were standing outside the exit, signing people up. So it appears that the mosque is also in on this. Which leads me to ask questions. If the mosque is pushing this, and we have a guy that was trying to say that the judge needed to take it lenient on ISIS that filed the letter to the judge, and then they're having their parishioners, if you will, that are like the essential victims of this, what are they doing with all the money? Muhammad says she didn't bring her kids to begin tutoring until some months later as school was getting back in session. She went to the address of a nondescript 3-story office building. It wasn't at all like she pictured. It was a small office space without any clues that children learn there. No chalkboard or textbooks. A representative from Achievers Tutoring said she would need to buy $50 laptops for each of her kids, ranging from kindergarten to 8th grade, to do the tutoring online. She didn't have $200 for the computers. The man only accepted cash, but she was able to get 2. Her 2 other kids could use laptops they had from school. Mahmoud said he directed them to go to another address in Bloomington the following week for online tutoring, but that turned out to be no more promising. Instead, the teachers there were a half a dozen or so young men scrolling through TikTok. One directed her to set up the laptops for the kids to use and told her she could leave and come back later. When I saw the place, I determined it wasn't a place I could leave my children alone. She stayed and watched the kids log into a virtual class with an instructor whom she believes was in another country. She speaks Somali and only a little English, but her kids are native English speakers and they couldn't understand the teacher. After about 40 minutes, the lesson was over. It seemed like a joke, but she said she tried bringing them back one more time. After that, she decided to pull her kids out. Months later came a horrible surprise. Thousands of dollars were taken out of her tax refund to pay for the 2 subpar tutoring lessons. Thousands. Her refund wasn't even enough to cover the entire expense. It put her in debt. They charged her thousands of dollars for this, ladies and gentlemen. It signed up with a company called Achievers Tutoring, a company created in 2021 by Osman Sheikh Yusuf. That is the same guy from the letter sent to the judge asking him to take leniency on the ISIS terrorists. Refer back. Osman Yusuf. She signed up with him and was charged thousands of dollars. Same guy that filed the letter asking for them to take pity on those guys that wanted to join ISIS. Holy frickin' crap. Happens to share the same last name as the Success Tutoring founder. According to the records from the Minnesota Secretary of the State, the men did not answer the question from the Reformer on how they are related. Both companies were registered with the same business in Bloomington. Interesting. Both companies have nearly identical websites offering online courses, math, English, coding, and all that. They boast 975 plus satisfactory students, 150 teachers, and 27 years in experience. And both websites have identical testimonials from 4 satisfied individuals, all named Griffin Wooldridge. You guys want to go over? We'll check out that company in just a sec. When sent a list of questions by Reformer, both companies sent nearly identical statements with the same lawyer copied on the email. The statements say that they launched their respective companies to help students of color overcome the achievement gap. For those who have not received the credit, we encourage them to adhere to the guidelines set by the Minnesota Department of Revenue and Minnesota After School Advance. Interesting. Adhere to the guidelines set by the Minnesota After School Advance, which was founded by Rep. Matt Norris, who put more money into the dang program through his legislation. The people are being signed up at mosques. One of the companies is owned by a guy that wanted a judge to take sympathy on multiple individuals that wanted to join ISIS. Shall we? You understand why I had to have this dang flowchart now? Like without this, it would blow your mind. Like it adds so much more context. When asked about the list of questions sent by the Reformer, he said that they are in compliance with all guidelines. We compliance with all guidelines. Mahmoud says dozens of Somali mothers who signed up for tutoring sessions with 2 companies have formed a WhatsApp group to try and help one another. 18 moms shared their stories with the Sahan Journal, which first reported complaints about Success Tutoring. Companies promote their services on social media, mostly in Somali. In one TikTok video for Success Tutoring, Abdijal Sheikh Yusuf sports a large gold watch and tells viewers from a black SUV the only thing their parents need to make their children successful is to sign up for Success Tutoring. In another video for Achievers Tutoring, Osman flashes the peace sign from a Tesla truck. And there you can see their TikTok videos encouraging them to sign up in Somali from a Tesla Cybertruck and a Rolex. And again, the moms are being recruited. Yeah, you see it right there. The moms are being recruited out of mosques, signed up by a man that wanted a judge to take leniency on ISIS. And it's all right. The company that they're using, the program that they're using is the Minnesota After School Advance, which is a program pushed by Youth Enterprise and the Venn Foundation, Youth Prize and the Venn Foundation. Youth Prize provides the money that goes in to the After School Advance. And these companies are the ones that are recruiting and charging these people on their program. $4,000 for upwards of $4,000 for just a couple lessons. $1,500 is covered from taxes. So then those people, and this is the crazy part about it, if you really think about it, when you look at the way this is set up, these people, these ones right here, whose, again, companies registered, I couldn't find. And their tax filings, because they're for profit, aren't going to be found either. This place gives them the money. They make these people sign contracts. So these guys are paid up front. They get the money, guaranteed, because it's coming from a nonprofit organization. These people recruit and scam these people for garbage lessons and charge them ridiculous rates. Then these people end up owing them the money along with the Minnesota government, because some of them aren't qualifying for the tax breaks. Some of them aren't qualifying for the tax breaks. So not only do they have to pay back the Minnesota After School Advance, but some of them are actually having to pay it in taxes at the end of the year as well. And the big question that I have, and I think everybody else should have, why do we have a guy that was essentially sympathizing for ISIS have a company founded that is then recruiting people from a mosque, and the mosque is okay with it? They're recruiting people out of the mosque at the mosque. The mosque is okay with it, so the company's doing it there. So it makes you wonder how much money these companies are then giving to the mosques, and whether or not those mosques are then sending the money to ISIS, because this guy who sympathizes for them wants to see that happen. Does that make sense? This crap needs investigated. This is a serious problem. This is what we would at least call reasonable suspicion, for the love of God, because it certainly appears that these people are being frauded, even though they're signing paperwork thinking that they're going to get something great. Let's go back. In June 23 letter, the Minnesota Department of Revenue told her she was being audited because of the $3,000 she claimed for the K through 12 education credit. Agency requested a dizzying number of documents showing what programs her children were enrolled in, the dates her children met with qualified instructor, and the type of tutoring they received. They wanted to see that she had paid 25% for the tutoring services as required by state law and the contract she supposedly entered in with Minnesota After School Advance. Notice, she entered in a contract with Minnesota After School Advance, the program that is essentially funded by those two different nonprofit organizations. She was overwhelmed. The letter was in English, not in Somali. They were also asked for things that she never had. She didn't sign a contract. She said she gave her information over the phone. She didn't have a receipt for what she had paid. She was told that it was, look at this. She didn't have a receipt for what she paid. She was told it was free. She didn't have verification that the instructor was qualified. She didn't know the teacher's full name. With her tax credit denied in September, she received a letter from the Department of Revenue saying the entirety of her state tax refund, $2,418, was used to pay for her debt to Minnesota After School Advance, which had advanced the money to Achievers Tutoring. Does that make sense? She got recruited by Achievers Tutoring, the guy that wrote the letter to the judge, allegedly. All right. Recruited at a mosque, money fronted by this program to him. She gets charged for it. They screw all the paperwork up and lie to her. And because she signed a contract, she now owes money right back to them. And the state forwards her tax refund right back to the nonprofit. Like most low-income parents, she was counting on her tax refund bolstered by the tax credit. It didn't happen just once. The next year in 24, more of her tax refund disappeared. The reformer interviewed 2 other women who enrolled their kids in Success Tutoring and whose stories are strikingly similar to hers experience with Achievers Tutoring. They gave social security numbers over the phones for supposedly free tutoring that would help their children recover from pandemic learning loss. Then they got cheap laptops for online sessions. Raho Hussein said her 10th grader, a native English speaker, was put in a tutoring session where the instructor was teaching ABCs and 1, 2, 3s. Sometimes the instructor didn't show up at all. She had thousands of dollars taken from her tax return. A 10th grader learning ABCs and 1, 2, 3s. So did another mom, Saladat Ali, for her 4 kids. She said she only intended to sign up her 2 oldest children, but she was also charged for tutoring for her 3-year-old and 4-year-old, even though they are too young and never attended tutoring. You hear that? They signed up kids that weren't old enough and that never were intended to go. The woman also said her kids, who are native English speakers, couldn't understand their instructors because of their heavy accents. They looked Asian and their mothers believed they were from a foreign country, tutoring from the Philippines. Julia, an archives tutoring instructor based in the Philippines, said she was recruited through Facebook page for Filipino freelancers about 4 years ago. She'd log into her online virtual classroom one evening this month through a publicly available link on the Achievers Tutoring website. The reformer also entered 2 other virtual classrooms, both led by instructors based in the Philippines. The instructors aren't licensed to teach in Minnesota, although at least 2 do have bachelor degrees, according to their LinkedIn profiles. She spoke with clear English, one of which is the official language of the Philippines. She said she had 17 students with Achievers who are divided into 2 groups she meets with twice a week. She said she's mostly there to answer questions about the kids, blah, 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 blah. Work through online modules. She said she gets paid $4.50 an hour. You guys see that? She gets paid $4.50 an hour. Twice a week, probably 1-hour sessions, big groups, answering questions on homework. $10 a week for this one teacher. And they're being charged thousands upon thousands of dollars by these companies and these nonprofits. I think that's about enough of diving into that. So the question, as we look at this whole scheme that is up here, and my issue is that the Minnesota After School Advance knows that they're working with these 2 companies. And I would think it's on a nonprofit organization to be able to look into these 2 companies and say, you know what? You guys don't appear to be honest businesses. How can we tell? Give me just a second. I'm going to show you. D. Blongo 5223 says, Matt, I would like if American citizens could be deputized, those that would want to, in helping ICE agents. We've gotten a handle on these illegals. Yeah, we're never going to get a handle on these illegals. I think the way that would work is if a sheriff's department actually signs up. I forget what the law is. There's a law that allows the state law enforcement and local law enforcement to work along ICE agents and be trained that way. And sheriffs have the ability to deputize whoever the hell they want. So a sheriff could theoretically deputize American citizens, train them in that, and then they could go about making those different arrests. It doesn't just stink of fraud, ladies and gentlemen. We're just getting warmed up. I do want to go through and go over some of these super chats before we get in there. Shakifla says, good morning, Matt and fellow truthers. MAGA F80 says, best wishes, Matt, and God bless you. AD Dutch's mom says, I wonder if Minnesota Congresswoman was killed because she learned about the fraud. Supposedly she was changing her vote regarding Medicaid. Yep, that's true, in my opinion. Howard Faust just came in gifting out $5. Appreciate you, brother. MAGA F80 gifts out 5 Speak the Truth memberships. Hell yeah, brother. Appreciate you. Reading Rambo says, please say a quick prayer for my wife. She just had spinal surgery on Monday. She's recovering, but it's going to take time. Yeah. Lord, please look after his wife and ease her suffering as she goes through the recovery process. And may she have a quick and speedy recovery. Ask this in your name and all your glory. In Jesus' name, amen. Incog Faraday says, blue states love illegal voters. No kidding. Elijah Johansson says, Algerians do the same thing in FR. The husband has one official wife. The other 3 are single mothers. Follow the money. Still haven't posted a new invite link in the perk session. God bless, Matt. Oh, that's my bad. I need to do that. D. Blongo says, Matt, I would like if American citizens could deputize those. Yeah, and we covered that one. All right, so let's get back onto the scheme that they are freaking running, because it's absolutely shocking, right? So we get the idea. Recruiting people out of mosques. ISIS sympathizer, in my opinion, one of the guys that founds the company, money flowing back into a nonprofit that was founded by a rep that pushed to have the income get even bigger. Dylan McClung, yet Ilhan Omar and her crew had the audacity to call Trump and the rest of us the problem. Guess they don't make big enough mirrors in Minnesota. No, they do not. It looks like you would have to have a mirror that covers the entire House of Representatives for the state of Minnesota. That's a really dang big mirror. My question is, how many people are aware of it? Because these guys have got to be filing their taxes, right? They've got to be. These people that they're hiring for $4.50 an hour, you've got to, like, it, that keeps it under like a $600 threshold, but they got to be asking how they're providing all of this tutoring and all of this crap at that level, I would think anyways. So yeah, let's go take a look at their website, shall we? Give me one sec here as I grab it. Minnesota After School Advance. Let's start there, because this is one of the most shocking things. They still have a website, ladies and gentlemen. So Minnesota After School Advance still has a website. And the crazy part, as you start to look through it, here you can see those 2 organizations that I told you about, those 2 nonprofits, Youth Prize and Venn Foundation. It's a 3-minute video. I actually haven't even listened to it yet, but I just showed you how it actually works. So now I'm curious to see how they claim it works.
Need help paying for after-school and summer activities for your kids, like tutoring, dance classes, music lessons, and driver's education? Research shows that students who participate in these types of activities get better grades in school, graduate at higher rates, and are more prepared for careers. Minnesota After School Advance, or MAA, can help families save up to 75% on these important activities. So how does it work? The first step is to complete the online application form on the MAA website. This is how we determine if you are eligible for assistance through MAA. If the student you apply for is approved, you will receive a letter and an email with an invitation to go to the MAA website to register for activities. When you register, you typically pay 25% of the regular price of the activity.
When you register, you typically pay. Didn't we just read that state law says you are required to pay 25% in order to qualify for the tax break?
MAA advances you the remaining amount, usually 75%, on a no interest, no fee basis. MAA MAA then pays the money to the provider of the activity, and your student gets to participate. At the end of the year, MAA will send you special instructions about where to find free tax preparation assistance in your community and how to claim the K-12 education tax credit when you file your taxes. This is how MAA gets repaid. The tax credit will equal the amount MAA advanced to you. This is extra money that you will only get by registering for an activity through MAA. It is not part of your regular refund. For example, let's say you normally would get a refund of $2,000 and MAA advanced you $250 this year. Your tax forms would actually show a refund of $2,250. The Department of Revenue will take that extra $250 and repay it to MAA and send you the $2,000 you'd normally receive. MAA can then use that $250 again the next year to help you or another family pay for activities.
Yeah, only problem is that's not actually what happened now, is it? Now, interesting enough, when we go and we take a look at it, let's go over to their About section. Are you ready for this? Important updates. No new lending in 2025. Check that out. Miracle. MAA has made a hard decision not to make new loans for 2025. There are many reasons for this decision. The most important is that it has become increasingly clear that the Minnesota K-12 Education Tax Credit, METC, and the related assignment process needs significant administrative changes in order to work well at scale for families, service providers, lending programs like MAA, and the involved state government agencies. The current system is not working well enough as designed. Now, that's weird that they say that because I'm pretty sure even in doing this, now this is an education website. Yeah. I read a typo as I was going over that, and I just automatically fixed it in my brain. MAA has made a hard decision not to make new loans in 2025. There are many reasons for this decision. The most important is that it has become increasingly clear that the Minnesota K-12 education tax and the related assignment process need significant administrative changes in order to work well at the scale for families, service providers, lending, whatever. Focus changes. Long story short, they're not doing anything. All right. Now, here's the other scary part about this. Focus on system changes. They believe that the fundamental system changes are urgently needed in order for METC and assignment processes to truly work as involved. Key stakeholders of the state of Minnesota have shown eagerness. Key stakeholders at the state of Minnesota have shown eagerness to review and improve the system. Who do you think that key stakeholder is? MAA intends to focus its energy on systems change in 2025. We hope that you will join us in this work. They give one contact email that you can write and get a question from: Jasmine Wilson at youthprize.org. So if you have questions on this program, you don't contact the MAA, you go to Youth Prize. Here's the other fun thing. Let's go to staff. That's it. Aaron Martin. This is the entire staff of the Minnesota After School Advance. Aaron Martin. That's it. That is the only staff that they have. Funders. Major funders. Thrivent Charitable Impact Investing announced a grant of up to $1 million to help accelerate the growth of MAA. That's great. The initial seed funding came through a social initiative innovation grant from the Bush Foundation, which provides $210,000 over 2 years. This grant allowed to build the test of the MAA model. Other founders, since our launch in 2018, the institutions and individuals that have helped bring it up: Best Buy Foundation, Century Point Energy Foundation, Connected Minnesota, the Minneapolis Foundation, St. Paul and Minnesota Foundation, individual Venn account holders. Imagine that. So remember, Venn, from the Venn Foundation, Venn account holders funded it. Corruption is rampant, and this isn't just happening in Minnesota. I wonder how many other states are as bad as the unusual cities. Keep it up, Matt. Well, my question is can the Best Buy Foundation, Centerpoint Energy Foundation, can any of those foundations, now that we know how this scheme is working, can they sue these two nonprofit organizations for the money that they invested in it, which very clearly appears that it's ripping people off? Very clearly appears as if it's ripping people off. I don't understand how they can still be functioning. Now, ended up looking into Youth Prize. All right? And their nonprofit filing, which is right here. Latest one I could find was from 2023 for their 2022 tax year. And I ended up just taking this whole thing and putting it in, and some very notable things. Number one, Youth Prize, the people that are providing the money that are flowing in there. When you go and you see how much Youth Prize is actually paying out, it's freaking ridiculous. All right. So Youth Prize does a bunch of other stuff, but I want to say their CEO is making somewhere in the neighborhood of $250,000, if I remember right. Lobbying non-taxable amount, $481K in 2019, 590. Yeah, it's freaking insane. The amount of money that company spends on lobbying. But let's keep going. Where is it? They have a couple of consulting companies, General Consulting for Funding, Crowler White Helmer, and Advanced for Equality Impact, $49K. Where is it? Here we go. Grants that they ended up giving out. Youth Bank, number of recipients, 5. Amount of cash grant, $250,000. Minnesota After School Advanced Scholarships. So we can see this year that they paid out $410,808 to 1,543 recipients. Now, that's really interesting. Let's do the quick math on that, where you have 410,808 with a claimed 1,543 recipients for a grand total of $266. So there is something here that's not adding up, because if we go back and we look at that lady that's claiming she gets charged a buttload of money here on their tax return, they're claiming an average of $266 per recipient going into the Minnesota After School Advanced Scholarship Program. Meanwhile, if we refer back to that article and we go back up, again, they're paying $450 an hour and everything else. Yep. She was being audited because of the $3,000 she claimed. Not to mention, I believe she had said that she got her entire tax return. Yep, here it is. With her tax credit claim denied in September, she received a letter from the Department of Revenue saying the entirety of her tax refund, $2,418, was used to pay for her debt to Minnesota After School Advance. So here we have a debt of $2,418 to Minnesota After School Advance. All right. And I'm trying to remember what year this was that this ended up happening. Yep. Give me a second. Do they state what year she actually ended up talking to them? I'm trying to remember, because if the year matches, well, either way, you get the idea. She owed almost $2,500, $2,418 to the Minnesota After School Advance. And here on this line, you can clearly see that they're claiming an average of $266 on the tax return from 2022. Kind of a problem, in my opinion. Then you can also see all of these people that they end up giving money to. And this is where Youth Prize really starts to bother me. The first thing that we're going to look at is Youth Prize reportedly gave $86,219 grant to the New Vision Foundation. The New Vision Foundation. So let me go ahead and open that link for you. 73rd defendant charged in Feeding Our Future case. Hussein Mohammed Farah, the executive director of the New Vision Foundation, a nonprofit located in St. Paul, was charged by information with one count of wire fraud for his role in the $300 million Feeding Our Future fraud scheme, announced acting U.S. Attorney General. So here you have them donating to a company that was frauding the crap out of people. In all, between February 21 and January 22, New Vision Foundation received approximately $2.7 million for meals purportedly served to children. Well, it also looks like they received money as well from this organization, which is freaking shocking. Let's take a look at another one. So there is money, Youth Prize, donated to New Vision Foundation. And again, it was $86,219 grant to New Vision. Where was all of that money going? Was it going directly to him? Youth Prize also gave $90,030 to Kajug nonprofit organization, who, by the way, recently got charged in fraud. DHS kept sending state money to Minnesota nonprofit after a board chair charged with fraud. So here is your second one. A well-known Minnesota nonprofit collected millions of dollars in a state grant, continued to rake in taxpayer money after its board chair was charged with massive Medicaid fraud, according to 5 investigations, reviews, court records, and state data. Critics say the case raises blah, 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 blah. The nonprofit Kajug was once celebrated by politicians and local officials and even won awards for its work with the Somali children. But the group's status in the community appeared to take a substantial hit 2 years ago when Ali Emi, the chair of their board, was charged in the largest Medicare fraud case of all time. So they gave $90,000 to a second organization that has been charged with fraud. $86,000 to New Vision, $90,000 to Kajug. I can't express to you how just shocking that should be for most people. 2 organizations that have currently been found guilty of fraud, or members of them have been found extremely guilty of fraud, this company is donated to. And we also know that this nonprofit organization is giving the money to Minnesota After School Advance, that is their program, in partnership with the Venn Foundation, who's ripping off, via Success and Achievers Tutoring, ripping off people, allegedly, in the state of Minnesota. Recruiting out of mosques, being headed up by a guy that is sympathetic, at least, in my opinion, towards ISIS and those that want to join it. Let's not forget about the reporting of the $80,000 that ended up going over to Al-Shabaab through schemes. Somebody said that the United States is the largest funder of Al-Shabaab through the state of Minnesota. My question is Minnesota also the largest funder of ISIS through these nonprofit organizations? That's a very serious question. Now, it is possible that Youth Prize got ripped off by those other 2 companies, and they're currently being ripped off by Achievers Tutoring. It's possible. I don't believe that, personally. That's my personal opinion. I think that to be doing business with them for this long, that it's highly probable that you probably looked into them at some point. So let's go take a look. Why do I say that? Let's take a look at Achievers Tutoring over in Minnesota. You guys ready for this? Here's Achievers Tutoring.
Assalamu alaikum, walaal soo dhawow. I know inaad raadinaysid xal oo ilmahaaga waxbarashadooda aad rabto inay meel fiican ka gaaraan, mustaqbal fiican ay yeeshaan.
Not a single one of you is going to understand a single word that's spoken on this website. Not a single one of you. 15-minute introduction video. Here is all your different testimonials that they'll end up having And it's crossing state lines. Ohio, Georgia, Louisville, Kentucky, Wisconsin, North Carolina, Georgia, Tennessee, Minnesota. Look at this. All their quote unquote testimonials. New parent orientation? Nope. You got to go through that. Google Meet? Nope. Got to have a password. Placement test? Please follow these simple steps.
Achievers Tutoring and videogan waxaad ka arkaysan habka.
Again, don't expect to find it in English. Maybe this one is.
Hi, welcome to Achievers. You're going to be taking your placement test today. We're going to find out where you're at in math and English.
And again, remember, there was a 10th grader that was being taught their ABCs and 1, 2, 3s through this company. Look at all of this freaking loophole that you have to jump through. Go to guul.us, take the placement test, click the button, do all this crap, take all 4 of these tests, and then call this phone number when it's done. Why am I tempted to do another online call just after yesterday? There is nothing on this website. Absolutely nothing on this website. What was the name of that other company? Success Tutoring. Let's go take a look at their website real quick. Oh, wouldn't you know it? Same thing.
Assalamu alaikum. Walaalyaal, waa Idrus from Success Tutoring. Alhamdulillah.
Yep. You open it up. All the tabs look to be about exactly the same. You go down, empower your children's learning journey with Success Tutoring, offering programs, blah, 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 self-motivation, benefits. This is probably like one of the most ridiculous things that I've seen in a long time. Oh, looks like you got lost. You can't go there. Let's check out their blog. Oh, looks like you got lost. You can't go there. Let's look at their courses. Oh, looks like you got lost. You can't go there. Let's go to their photos. Certainly they have photos, right? Up. Looks like you got lost. You can't go there. But you know where you can go? You can go to their homepage. That's where you can go.
Assalamu alaikum.
You can watch their videos. This is the most ridiculous thing that we can do. Mary Dean said, Matt, is there a way you can interview me live on your show? Yeah, Mary Dean, there is a way. I can send you a Skype link and I can interview you. If you write me over on X, send me a DM over there. That way you go to the top and then we can talk about what the interview would be and everything else. This, ladies and gentlemen, is the amount of money that's being sent by U.S. taxpayers. And the funny thing is that they were just looking at this as federal government frauding. But now it definitely appears, to me anyways, like you have a bunch of money that is being sent via mosques, via not via mosques, via, recruiting people at mosques, charging them thousands of dollars, taking their tax refunds, and it being pushed by a state legislator. That is absolutely nuts. And yes, whoever you are that just wrote me, you know who you are. Warn them. Warn them now. You know who you are. Send the warning. It's absolutely abhorrent. This to me is one of those things that I look at when we go into this and I say, you have one of probably the largest cases of fraud taking place through nonprofit organizations, but it's not even just ripping off the government. It's literally taking people's money straight out of their taxes. And it's using covers of nonprofits. And one of the interesting things is because the MN After School Advance is a program, right? It's not a nonprofit within itself. All of its money flow is hidden. You don't get to see that on tax filings. You don't get to see that in any public record. All of that is going to be held internally over at Youth Prize. So you don't get to see any of that whatsoever. Hollywood Marine says, I've been a member longer than 12 months. Check your phone, Matt, for my text. I have a new number, sir. my phone number ended up getting leaked. So I have a brand new number. It's freaking disgusting. Herbert Smells says the corruption is rampant and isn't just happening in Minnesota. I wonder how many other states are as bad as the usual cities. Keep it up. Thank you. Eli Johansson says, honest question, members of Congress are civil servants. Why are they not subject to mandatory drug tests like soldiers, cops, and postal workers? Good question. That is a very good question. Matt Army Vet. My youngest tutoring was through the school district prior to him being old enough for pre-K. Had a bunch of paperwork on it, etc. Private companies doing this is sus. Thank you. I mean, I have my son in private tutoring right now, and I take him in, I drop him off. They send me updates, reports. I speak with the people there. They give me progress reports, all sorts of stuff. And it's not online, it's in person. You show up and there's people that are sitting there. There's two good ones I would recommend if you're looking for some after school tutoring for your kids. One is Kumon. No, they don't sponsor the channel. And the other one is Mathnasium. I think they're both amazing places to be able to take your kids. D. Blongo says, Matt, I would like it if American citizens, could be deputized. Yeah, we talked about that. So that's it for this morning, ladies and gentlemen. Am I wearing pants? Yes, I'm wearing pants. Have I been pants checked this morning? No, I have not been pants checked this morning. Do I believe that there is way more fraud being funneled overseas than could ever be imagined? Yeah, I believe that there's a buttload of fraud. I believe that American taxpayers are being frauded. I believe that the nonprofits are hiding money and are potentially being ripped off. But you gotta ask Matt Norse, who is in the House of Representatives over in the state of Minnesota, how could he possibly have started this as a conglomerate of these two programs? He had to have been working in either Youth Prize, Venn Foundation, Recommended, etc., to stand this up and to start getting all of that money. We know he was lobbying for all of this crap. We know he was lobbying as he had that company. And this is, to me, something that just reeks of corruption. In the years prior to him being elected, he was lobbying for that tax credit to be advanced. Like, he wanted in the years prior for that tax credit to get up. He was lobbying and lobbying and lobbying for it for the benefit of that program that he had allegedly founded. Then he gets elected, which God only knows that people inside of these different foundations, because it looks like Venn Foundation is actually the one that does all the lobbying for the program. Then he gets elected, and the first thing that he ends up passing is that. And then they're working side by side with a guy who was begging for leniency for ISIS fighters, who is recruiting people to sign up at different mosques. And those people are being scammed, in my opinion, thousands of dollars, according to that article. Scammed. Thousands. It's getting taken out of their taxes, and then that program, under the guise of that nonprofit, Youth Prize and Venn Foundation, allegedly, are the ones that are demanding the money from these people on top of it. They're just getting hosed left and right. And the question is what are these guys doing with the money of Success Tutoring and Achievers Tutoring? Because they're ripping off their own people. That's what it seems like. Most certainly seems like it. With the amount of money that they got flown in, you would think that their websites would at least be up and running, right? Instead of like page not found. And then the scariest part about it all, not only does Minnesota After School Advance choose that not to give out any more money this year, this guy on his election site ends up taking down the page that shows that he ends up founding this thing. And then Youth Prize is giving a bunch of money to other companies already involved in fraud. And all of that is falling on the shoulders of taxpayers and these poor people all the way down here at the end of the line. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Speak the Truth podcast. It's been my absolute pleasure to sit here and go over all of this with you guys today. And I can't believe that all of that crap ended up coming out just because
Somali American men
They
is set
posted
for
this
next week
video.
in Minneapolis, but a newly elected official is asking for leniency.
Minnesota Representative-elect Ilhan Omar wrote a letter to the judge asking for compassion instead of decades of prison time.
And Fox 9's Karen Scullin joins us now with what she had to say to defense attorneys and U.S. Attorney Andy Lugar. Karen?
Well, defense attorneys are asking for leniency, but so are several others who filed letters to the judge on behalf of the defendants. But U.S. prosecutors responded tonight with strong arguments why all of them should, in fact, receive the recommended sentence.
Election night was just 2 days ago, but it seems Minnesota Representative-elect Ilhan Omar may have already made her first move as an elected official. In a letter signed November 8th, Omar asks a U.S. district judge for compassion when sentencing 9 Minnesota Somali American men convicted of trying to join the terrorist group ISIS. She says the best deterrent to fanaticism is a system of compassion. We must alter our attitude and approach if we truly want to affect change. We should refocus our efforts on inclusion and rehabilitation. But she's not the only one. 13 letters, including one from the Dean of Students at Minneapolis Public Schools, were also sent to the judge asking for leniency. Osman Sheikh Yusuf says, "I truly am honored to call Abdi Rahman my friend, and I hope that good things happen to this wonderful young man who totally deserves a second chance in life." But those letters and defense attorneys' request for a lighter sentence might not be enough to convince a judge. U.S. Attorney Andy Lugar has filed